Hey, I'm joined with co-author of Horde Wars, DM Blackwall, also known as co-author Todd Ritzema. Hi, Todd.
Hi, good to be here.
Yeah,
How are
thanks.
you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm excited about this. Been talking a lot about Horde Wars, and across all social media, I see a lot of people really interested in the system, wanting to learn more about it. So,
Good.
just jumping in, we are going to talk about Megadungeons because I think you have a unique system for addressing how to design and plan and play Mega Dungeons in Horde Wars. But
Yeah.
first, let's just back up a step. Maybe folks who haven't seen some of your mini videos or one of my videos and don't know anything about Horde Wars.
Sure.
Tell us about Horde Wars, its origin, and what makes it special.
Sure. Horde Wars is a medieval fantasy RPG. Uses a D12 to as the core resolution die. So compare that to like a D20 or 2D6 or D10s, that kind of thing. So we use a D12, partly because this let us make a system that plays more exciting. Critical hits happen more frequently, and it let us also embed some penalties into the dice. Where if your character is like starving or cursed or something, uh, you'd roll a d10 or a d8 or something instead of a d12, and so the penalty is actually built into the die, and you don't have to stop and do subtraction. Um, that that seemed to work really well for us. It's really, as a game system, designed to let you fight large numbers of opponents efficiently on the table. We've done a number of changes compared to something like D&D or Pathfinder for how like spells are resolved, how turn order is handled, how weapons and armor work, in order to make the game play quickly and increase strategic depth at the same time. And that took us a few years to figure out how to do well.
How long was it? I think you've told me before, but you
Call it
and
3 years. It
partner
was
Nate.
it was it was over the course of a little longer, but the extra time was because of COVID and me having a busted leg. Not that
Yeah,
wasn't game design time.
well, hopefully you look like you're better and doing well, so we're happy for that. And I
Thanks.
should let everybody know that I've actually played Horde Wars, but only one time. And I met Todd and co-author Nate Lindy,
Yep.
and I forget the other gentleman who's part of the team as well. But let's give him some love and a mention as well.
Oh yeah, Steve came was up with us to Texas and ran some games.
So sorry, Steve. I know I met you as well at North Texas up in Dallas, what, a month ago. But Horde Wars was one of the things people were buzzing about in Dallas and talking about. I was able to get into a session. Um, all three of them were running sessions, but I saw one and I signed up for it. The name was Deus Vult, and again, a fantasy medieval setting kind of game. I don't know much Latin, but I knew that meant God wills it, and it had to do with a crusade of some sort.
Yeah.
So I jumped into that session, and that morning I sat at the table. I'd already talked to Todd a little bit. He was actually running that game, and I have to say it was really, really impressive for the 4 or 5. I think it was 5 of us playing. Because your models and your terrain and your figures, and I never play with figures and miniatures, and maybe I should, but really enjoyed the layout and the spread, plus the way you ran the game for us.
Thank you.
Yeah, did you? And I assume you had a lot of that over the weekend. There had to be a lot of attaboys and pats on the back. I know people, even when you weren't standing there, were saying good things about Horde Wars.
Well, it was a lot of fun. A lot of it was networking for us. Our sales were, I would say, middling. Like they weren't bad, but we sold probably, I don't know, 20, 30 books somewhere in there, and probably about 200 miniatures, which is fine.
Yeah.
I'd love to sell out though. I'd love to show up with 100 books and just sell them all. That'd be,
Absolutely,
you know,
absolutely, and I definitely don't want to forget this, so I'm just going to throw it in now. Along with those of you who maybe have seen my videos on my channel before, or if you haven't and you're new, please like this video. Please subscribe to the channel. I talk a lot about Shadow Dark, but not exclusively. Obviously, I'm talking Horde Wars right now, and do talk other systems or system agnostic stuff sometimes in this space. The other important message, and probably more so because this involves your pocketbook and your wallet and so forth, is I'm told, little bird tells me there's going to be a July 4th sale, and you have a great opportunity to save some substantial bucks
yeah.
picking up Horde Wars on Friday, only Friday, July 4th. Tell us how
Correct.
that's going to work, please, Todd.
Yeah, so that'll be an Independence Day sale, and it'll be $15 off all of our softcover books. Our soft covers are made entirely in the United States. They are only available for purchase in the United States. And yeah, if you're just kind of on the fence or wondering should I get a copy, Basic will be available for $20 that day only, and Advanced, which includes all of Basic and additional material for higher level play, um, will be for sale for $35. And then in both cases, plus like $10 shipping or so. It's not a small book, so it's like 2 or 3 pounds.
And I
But
apologize. I have the PDF. I haven't bought the big book yet. Do you have one right there you can physically show them?
not like sitting in front of me, but
Okay,
yeah,
not a problem.
it's a
Yeah.
300-page book for Advanced, 180 pages
And
or
it's
190
8.5 by
pages.
11 size, more or
Yeah,
less oversized. So yeah, it is thick, and it's got beautiful artwork. I know we talked about some of the artists last time that were involved, four,
thanks.
five,
Yeah,
six artists involved, um, and that cover image is so iconic. I'm sure a lot of folks are seeing it all over YouTube and on social media. It's a beautiful medieval battle scene with knights and blood and gore and a castle in the background and flying dragons. So a lot of really fun stuff if you like that game flavor.
yeah,
And I imagine the people listening to this channel like that kind of game.
yeah.
So
John Torres, or the Basic Expert, he did both of the covers for Basic and Advanced, and we're trying to get him to do. He said he'd do it. He hasn't done it yet. We're trying to get him to do a cover for a module as well coming up.
oh, that would be very cool. Yeah, and that's another thing we were talking about is expansions and what's coming next. And I know you guys maybe aren't looking for any kind of license for third party content, but you
Oh
are.
no, that's a thing that we offer. We're willing to work with third party creators.
Okay, I
That's
misunderstood.
actually
I thought you were saying that may come someday, but at first we're going to kind of.
yeah.
That was my misunderstanding. So
It
you
was
are doing that as well as
so
going to
it's
write some games.
so it's not an open license because we're a small company. We want people to work with us. In part because if the first time someone hears of Horde Wars, we don't want them to just encounter like a bad game. We do have to be careful with the brand a little bit up front. One, Lord willing, if we get a bit larger, we probably will do an open game license. But in the short term, in the next year or two, it's working with us. And the thing that we offer kind of as a carrot for that is because we own our own artwork. We are able to license those for products for people who work with us to use. So, for example, so you could make a module for less money that has some of our artwork in it,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah, and one other thing I talked about with you is I love the fact that so much is packed into the one book. You don't need three books or buying a separate
Yeah.
bestiary. Can you just recap before we? I don't want to keep them
Sure.
strung out too long because they tuned in when they saw Megadungeons on that
Yeah.
thumbnail.
Yeah.
That's why they're listening. But one more thing, tell us about kind of what's included in this book, and you have everything you need.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So advanced, and I'll just quick hop over here so I can read in the column. You've got the core game rules, character creation rules. You've got 5 species with 4 or 5 variants in the back of the book. You've got a skills chapter, a chapter on features, equipment, a chapter on domain play, a chapter for nautical adventures with encounter tables for at sea and in other wet environments. Got a game master chapter with various travel encounters and such. We have a full chapter of beasts, a full chapter of monsters, full chapter of NPCs. Between these, that's over 200 stat blocks for you to encounter and play with. We also have a treasure table section, which includes over 150 unique artifacts that you can find, hundreds and hundreds of different artifact weapons you can find, and a bunch of different like art treasure pieces, like unique paintings or sculptures or decorative thrones or whatever it might be. We also have a chapter with a starting adventure, a starting village, and points of interest around that to go exploring in. That includes directions for building your own mega dungeon and a sample 2-page spread of how to run a mega dungeon there. We also have a full setting chapter introducing 8 different nations of the world, with a map of the starting continent and so forth.
Wow. So
There's
world
also
setting.
7 sample characters in the back for you to start playing with immediately.
Not much you guys did not think about putting in here and giving people a reason to buy one book and start playing. So now you've been briefed on Horde Wars, and you understand why people are kind of pumped about this, and it's doing well. And you have that opportunity on Friday for the July 4th sale. So now, fast forwarding into what they came for, the big show, we're going to talk about Megadungeons, because I was surprised. I've been surprised multiple times once I bought this and flipping through and reading and reading and going, oh, there's a chapter on this. Oh, they included that. There's probably still a lot of things I haven't found in here, but I'm hoping to play again soon. So
Good.
I will be reading up before I get the next game or get to the next table of Horde Wars. So take us, before we get into the Mega Dungeon, let's talk about defining a Mega Dungeon, because I think I get the sense that sometimes there are newbies, people that are new to this wonderful hobby. They love role-playing games. They like things with, castles in the medieval period and scary monsters and all that. That's what this is. Define a Mega Dungeon for us in your terms.
Well, I mean, we do that in the first sentence of this little section. It just says that a mega dungeon is a vast location that can take days, weeks, or even an entire campaign to clear and loot.
Yeah, very concise and very to the point. Now, within that definition, depending on what you're playing or who your DM is, or your world setting, a lot of other things, it can go from A to Z.
Yeah, but it's not a 4-room dungeon.
Right, it's not a 4-room dungeon. It's definitely not a 5-room dungeon. Right, yeah. It's a bigger, longer, more drawn-out thing.
Yes.
With lots of expanse and lots of imagination involved to make it fun and playable.
And for level-based systems like D&D, Pathfinder, Shadow Dark, Horde Wars, a Mega Dungeon, generally speaking, you assume that you're going to gain character levels over the course of exploring the Mega Dungeon. It's usually involved enough that you're going to be there for a long period for the character.
Yeah, there's none of this leaving after so many hours, or we need a short rest, jumping out of the dungeon, back to a camp, back to the village, and then back into the. It's not that.
Well, maybe, but that's still exploring the Mega Dungeon. You're not like going somewhere else.
It's not like you're Fred Flintstone going to work, punching the clock, and riding the dinosaur down to your thing there. I see nobody's gonna be old enough to know.
I am.
So you're not punching the clock and going to the Mega Dungeon for work every day and then going back home at night, which means rests and safety and security between the action is can be a very scary thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So Mega Dungeons, I think when you break it down, I've played a few. I think my favorite is probably Dragon Mountain, which was, if I recall correctly, a TSR product in the early 90s before they went under. It was, at the time, I believe, the largest dungeon that had been published. I'm sure someone else had a bigger one at home, but
I'm sure somebody had to be going for the record. Probably many have attempted that.
Yeah, and it was, and I still own it. It was a lot of fun to play, but really, if you think about how it was designed at its core, it's a good 60+ page booklet explaining the dungeon, and then there are several additional booklets and inserts and handouts and a whole bunch of other things. Call it over 100 pages of writing in total. Well, I tried to think about it how I would try to express that in a shorter amount of space.
Well, let's flip over there. Let me pull up the doc then, and we'll switch this screen. Does that work for you?
Yeah, that should be fine. So basically, in that dungeon and in many Mega Dungeons, you're dealing with kind of a collection of big scary monsters, boss monsters essentially, and lots of little minion monsters or ones that aren't maybe individually terribly threatening. You've also usually got traps and empty rooms and various secrets and stuff. So, and that's all fine. But if mostly you've got a bunch of big boss monsters who've collected much of the treasure or are guarding it, well then it seems to me that the best way to organize the dungeon, especially if they kind of control territory, is in sections where a given section is described as being one or two boss monsters territory that they control, and then you, as you journey through the dungeon and enter a new section, now the description of the area changes, the encounter table changes, what traps might be bumped into should change, and what kinds of little minion creatures are around should also change. And also potentially your ability to move around, how many branching tunnels there are. Like, for example, um, if I just jump forward a page here, um, in our example Mega Dungeon. Now, we do not include a map. We actually tell you to just grab one from online because there are so many, and there are so many good dungeon generators. If you buy a separate dungeon module from us, it'll have maps. But for this, we just wanted to show you how to build a Mega Dungeon. And honestly, you can just grab any map and repurpose it if it's an appropriate scale. But the Caverns of Abaddon, you basically have a layer cake dungeon, 3 sections on top of one another, where there is a main entrance that is explained and detailed a bit. Then we talk about the natural caverns as a sector, where this is kind of like Carlsbad Caverns for those of you who have been there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like that's basically the natural caverns. The look, the feel, the spacing. And then we describe 2 transition points, the gallery and the grotto, which let you access other sections of the dungeon. And it's important you write out the transition points, the entrances, the places you can get to a new section. And then if you were writing this at a larger scale, even, you might also detail like rooms that have secrets. So maybe there's special rooms you can find. And in this case, we do have one that does have a secret in the sense that it's not just a transition point. It's got some gemstones embedded in the wall that you could actually mine if you've got the right equipment. But then when you get through these natural caverns, you could either wind up in the ruins of Abaddon, which is the city that was destroyed in a great cataclysm, and is underneath this limestone and flowstone natural caverns, the ruins of this city. You could find yourself there, dealing with golems and the various undead creatures, or you could go down to the Dark Temple. There's a shortcut down, or you could find your way in the ruins of Abaddon through the Hall of Blades, and it's again described, and the traps and stuff explained, down to the Dark Temple. And this is the reason the city was destroyed, is this Dark Temple. But even though the city was destroyed, the Dark Temple survives under it, and there's an active cult and demonic worship essentially still going on there. And so the way this is set up, you've got separate encounter tables by section. So here you'll see the natural caverns, and you'd roll a d20 in this column, ruins of Abaddon, and the Dark Temple. Well, in the natural caverns, we made sure to include traps as a possibility, and whenever you roll a trap, you re-roll so that you can potentially get more traps, an empty room with a trap, so it's just a trap, or traps and monsters. This allows you to embed in a single table pretty wide variety of outcomes, and you just have to balance the odds based on what you want the feel of the area to be. And then you have various normal creatures, cave bears, cats, beetles, and then you get into like goblins and basilisks and oozes and trolls, but these are all mostly like living creatures. But as soon as you transition to the ruins of Abaddon, now you're dealing, a few of those are still getting down there, but now you're dealing with false doors, poltergeists, golems, a few oozes, horrors, various undead, and then you're starting to bump into the cultists. And then as you get to the Dark Temple, now you're getting into magic traps, not just physical traps, and you're dealing with even more terrifying monsters.
So
And
each
then
level is
essentially,
somewhat, I'm sorry, each level is somewhat thematic then, and
yeah,
you adjust your encounters, your monsters, and some level, I would guess, of faction play.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
those levels.
And so part of that is about the boss monsters. So if you roll a 20 on this is a d20 table. If you roll a 20, you go down to the boss monsters, and you fight, and you basically you bump into one of the boss monsters from that level. And so here's those two encounters for Glug the Boneless, with 4 8-sided dice worth of other goblins, and there's a 25% chance he's on a what is it, a Bloodfire Spider. Or you could bump into this Greater Aberration, and he's accompanied by a bunch of traps and illusory walls and stuff. Because he can see through them and he can fly. So those are all just advantages for him. Um, okay, cool. So you could just bump into a boss monster, but we also include a mechanic that if you bump into something, a minion of a boss monster, a related monster, then you are a d4 rooms away, and if the players succeed on a check, they can actually follow that path to find the boss monster on purpose and not just randomly bump into him. And so, for example, if you had rolled for goblins, or goblins and wolves, or goblins and a cave troll, you would be close to Glug the Boneless's lair or his current position in the dungeon. And so you could then, after defeating them, or after seeing them and spying on them, roll a check to try to track down Glug and kill him. And in the Mega Dungeons, we basically have it so that the boss monsters have collected all the treasure, or all the meaningful treasure. And so you have to defeat a boss monster to get any loot at all, really. But all the boss monsters have double normal loot.
Which,
And that,
yeah, so it's concentrated, you're saying, over time, and it's not
yeah,
spread out randomly. A long time ago it was collected and
exactly.
recorded by each faction boss.
And this approach led us in 2 pages with written transition points, explanations for treasure, and sector-based descriptions. The only other thing you would need is a map, and again, there are plenty online you can use. But in a 2-page spread, it let us explain to you a 60-plus room dungeon.
Well, and don't you, for example, so adding on to this, bolting on to it, don't you have a chapter or a section on treasure that you could go to and roll it right up pretty much randomly there?
Oh yeah, yeah, no, definitely. Yeah,
Pre-planning. I mean, there's other, just like there's monsters. I see it now on the left on your table of contents, monsters, or if you
yeah,
in
the treasure.
you can integrate all of that into your mega dungeon.
Exactly. And then and then we talk about here, as far as this kind of philosophy of how to design it, like doing it that way, dividing it into sectors where you focus on transition points and maybe rooms that have secrets. Um, you really free up a lot of space, allow random tables, which you can build very easily. We've given you examples. And you can do this in any game. Uh, it allows you to, in a very small amount of space, have a ton of variety of play. And then we just talk about how each Mega Dungeon sector has 2 boss monsters living in it, or has up to 2. It could just be 1, but we have up to 2. Because once you get more than that, it probably should be split up into more sectors. And then we also mention that if you don't clear out the boss monsters, essentially the rest of the dungeon populates. Like we'll keep repopulating. The only way to permanently clear a dungeon is to kill all of the bosses.
Yeah, because something else will fill in the void or the gap created by something else.
Exactly.
Leaving or being killed off. Or something. Man, this is really exciting. I love how you've systemized, like everything in the book, you've systemized the mega dungeon in a fairly playable, simple, and fast way. I mean, I think most DMs, or GMs, even a newbie could come in here and get a good feeling for putting something together for the game next week without having to fret about, oh God, how do I? Of course, the map is a big part of it. You made that very easy. I think most of us would look at something that's already out there.
Yeah.
Or,
Now in my case, I actually randomly generated it as we went and had the players basically map making.
yeah,
Um, when I've run this, but that is very easy to do. I've been running a game. I've been running games like this for a very long time, and so it is not difficult for me to um, use a random generator that way. But I would not recommend that for a first time game master. I would get a map. Just
yeah. It,
uh,
it just depends on experience level and comfort and all that. And hey, I know some experienced people who played for 30+ years. You probably do too, and they still get like stage fright before they play, and they get all nervous, and so they're spending days planning for the next big game, because they don't want anything to go wrong, which is great
yeah.
that they care that much about it. But yeah, I know you're being blasé about it, but not everybody has the acumen and the skill and the confidence to be able to wing it at the table. But it does help if it's all spelled out for you in a system like this.
Yeah. And then if you want to just switch back to us, I'll just read this section for them. But we've kind of talked about the terminology,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
But building your own mega dungeon is very simple. When designing your, and I'm going to adjust the camera a little. Let me see if that's still, yeah, that's okay. Um, when designing your own mega dungeon, focus on the overall story of how the mega dungeon came into existence. This should tell you how many sectors it has, what kind of creatures live there, and if there are any traps. You also will need to select maps, or a map, and design the transition points between sectors, and then populate an encounter table. Now, the one I showed you is for 3 sectors and for up to 6 boss monsters. But nothing in the world would stop you from doing the same thing with 6 sectors, 9, 12, 8, 4, 2. That's not probably quite a mega dungeon, but you're getting there anyway. Big dungeon. Um, but you can do that pretty simply because you only need 20 outcomes, some of which often will be traps, at least one of which should be an empty room, probably at least 2 of which should be an empty room, and then various increments of creatures to find. Um, and then you just place a few pieces of additional treasure in specific locations in the dungeon itself to encourage exploration and reward the players for being observant. And we do warn you, don't go wild with this. Like, there's a lot of loot to get when they get kill the boss monsters. But that's why, for example, we have gems embedded in a wall in one of the rooms in our example dungeon. Um, and then we also have in the Dark Temple a chance of finding decorative objects as you go through the temple, which are also worth money. But then for the encounter tables, typically you're going to want 1 to 3 specific traps uh, in a given column, unless there just aren't any traps because there's no sentient or sapient creatures who would build them, and there never were. If you were in, say, a bear's cave, then you probably shouldn't have traps. That would be odd.
Yeah.
Unless it used to be like a necromancer's lair. Okay. Um, but then, and when you have traps listed, you have to make sure to tell yourself to roll again because you want to have outcomes including there's just a trap, there's multiple traps, and then there's traps and also monsters. You also, again, as I mentioned, going to want to have empty areas. You're going to want to assign 2 boss monsters to most sections of a mega dungeon. This will help it feel varied. It would be, I think, a little boring to have a sector with just a lich and only undead in it. I think it's much more interesting. It'll feel more. It'll feel more vibrant, more alive. If there's, say, a lich as a boss monster and a Goblin King as a boss monster who are occupying the same area, and possibly the Goblin King works for the Lich, but that you'll have a much greater variety of encounters when you do that. And then lastly, yeah, you just really, when you populate your encounter table, you want this to be less dangerous on average than a travel encounter for random encounters, and it's because the players are going to be fighting a lot more encounters in a row than they would be, say, on the road. Um, and so you don't want to just risk TPKs every single room as the default. Should it be possible? Absolutely. And definitely with the boss monsters. But the main goal of the other monsters is to deplete resources, kind of show the story of the dungeon and show who controls it, and to challenge the players, make it difficult for them to explore. The boss monsters, your goal there is to tempt the players into fights that they may or may not be able to win.
Are you a fan of, because it is not uncommon, not only the TPK, but losing some of the characters along the way? And I know you probably roll something up or have something standing by. Would you have some of those pre-gens maybe ready, or some other equivalent character class that you need to kind of slide in when Joe's guy gets killed and he's over there sulking in the corner? We need him, get him back up and in the game again, right? Not moaning about he threw me
If
over.
if there's a way for the players to gain a new characters to support, say they go back to town or whatever, um, yeah, I think that would be okay. If there isn't a way, once or twice you could strain credulity and stick them as a prisoner in the dungeon as you go. But you shouldn't keep doing that. Like if it's the same player whose character keeps dying, don't keep rewarding that behavior.
Well, I love the fact that you also don't spend very much time bogging down in the big problem to me in Megadungeons, which is the realism angle. Why does this place exist? What was the history here? And let's not even use the L word for lore, right? There's none of that.
But no, there is. You need to think about the lore up front when you design it, and
What, 2 paragraphs?
probably less.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I mean. The brevity is the thing of beauty that comes with being an experienced DM and knowing that that's not really what this is about. They want to get in there. They want to get playing. They want to discover and uncover the dangers,
Yeah.
the treasure, and the traps, and the monsters.
Well, and that would be like if you had like a room with secrets in it. That would be a place to add additional lore. But the core lore for the mega dungeon would be something like in this case is there was this evil city, and it had a secret temple underneath it that was super evil, and people believe that the creator god smote this city to destroy it, and then part of the result of that over time was sedimentary rock forming over it, and then natural caverns being cut into this rock. And so there's the natural cavern layer, the ruined city, and the dark temple. But that's really basic. That's not hard to explain.
Maybe 5 sentences, and that was your lore, and you're done. Okay, get the big picture. Now we're into it. Anyway, I think it's well done. And you didn't waste time on that. Just like the rest of this entire system, this entire rule set, there's not a lot of fluff where you don't need fluff, which we all know when
your question though, to explain, that's all you really need for the dungeon. But let's pretend we wanted a secret room or a room with secrets in it that was like about the fall of this city. That's not what we did. We actually want it to be a mystery. But let's pretend that you wanted to have a big revelation. We'll just detail that room in like a little paragraph as one of the fun things that they can find in the dungeon. And if you have a map, have it be a specific room. And if you don't, simply, and you want to make sure they find it, simply have them find it after X number of rooms in or next to the boss monster's room.
So the lore is relevant to that piece of the action in that place, and then you're back on and you're moving.
Yep.
You, the DM, did not have to write pages and pages of backstory that you're never going to ask about. No, I really like the system, and frankly, I know this is an intention, but some of us play multiple systems. Probably use this idea pretty easily in whatever you were playing when you're not playing Horde Wars.
Yeah.
So that's a feather you cap as well.
And I'd encourage your audience to do that. I mean, you don't need to write Gods of the Forbidden North. It's a great book. I own the first 2 volumes. But you don't have to do that to run a mega dungeon or to run a which is book 3 for his. You don't have to do that to have a mega dungeon. You actually could do 2 to 4 pages of prep and have a dungeon that is about 120 to 180 rooms.
Yeah, this whole hobby to me breaks down to a bunch of subdivisions of what you're really into. And sometimes they cross over, even within the same group of 4 or 5 regular friends that you play with. There's the one person who really loves the Megadungeon, always wants to come back to playing that. There's the other person who tells really long-winded stories and likes to prep his play and wants to write a novel because they're a frustrated writer, which, we're all kick them under the table. Okay, let's get into rolling dice here. That's enough. So we all have our little, and that's okay, though, if that's really what you like to do. I get it. I kind of fall into that group sometimes. So there's enough for everybody. And I think you and Nate did a great job with the book, giving enough in a really clean, economical system for every flavor of the game. Almost anything I could think of. There's enough there to jump in and get started and co-create with you guys.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, thank you very much. Did you have anything else you wanted to follow up on?
Great. I wanted to keep it short and concise and really remind people about Friday, the July 4th sale. You need to go check out Horde Wars. And again, if you want to talk and ask questions, DM Blackwall on your screen. You can talk to Todd on X. You can make comments right here. Or you can actually go to their website. And I know there's another channel, Discord. Why don't you fill them in, Todd?
Yeah, so our website is blackwallgames.com. I'm going to quick grab a link to share so that you can put it like with the video description or something if you want. Or
I'll put it in the show notes, folks. So look for all of those good links there.
And so, but yeah, blackwallgames.com. And then you can also reach me on X. And I want to say that's, let me look, at DM_Blackwall. The D, M, and B are capitalized. And then if you order through our website, we also will invite you to join our Guilded server, which is kind of like Discord. It's a little better organized. It's owned by the Roblox Corporation, so don't be shocked if you're asked to make a Roblox account. That's just a security feature they have. But anyway, where you can talk with us, you can get into games with other customers, you can play in games that Nate or I are running as well, and you also can playtest material with us that we're working on, or potentially give us suggestions about things that you feel should be in games. The One of the really cool things that we got to do, because we released Horde Wars Basic first, which is just the first 4 levels of play, and then Advanced is the full game, including those 4 levels, is we actually had customers from our first book tell us things they wanted to see in the full game, and in a few cases, a version of what they asked for is there because they asked for it. Usually not the actual rule they proposed. Usually that rule had a problem of some sort, but the kernel of the idea, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's great to get that kind of feedback process.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, if you guys have questions, follow up on one of these channels and chase them down. And I don't know what to tell you. Not only get Horde Wars, but an opportunity to get on Guilded server and go play and interact and ask questions with them is a fantastic opportunity. So I hope everyone will jump in and try Horde Wars.
Yeah, I look forward to it. And we do sell internationally. Also, I should note, the sale is for the U.S. as it is celebrating our nation's Independence Day. But if you want to buy internationally, you'll want to buy our hardcover because we have a distributor that can handle overseas shipments. Currently, we have a short list of countries we ship to overseas, but if you don't see your country on there, get a hold of us. You can email, let us know. Email you can find right in the website. That you want us to ship to your country, and you can be the guinea pig to find out what will happen when we try shipping there.
Todd, thanks so much. This has been a hoot. I appreciate it. Good stuff. Big fan of Horde Wars and appreciate what you guys have written and Nate. So we'll talk to you next time. I'm sure we're going to talk and make another video before too long about some other aspect of Horde Wars. At least I hope so.
Yeah, sounds great.
Hey, thanks. Have a good one. And thank you, everybody, for watching and tuning in. Appreciate it.